Throughout my high school career, I've been a dancer in musicals and an actress in plays. I've also been involved in student government, mock trial, and the youth in government program. So basically, if it has to do with patriotism or performing, I'm there. In the fall, I will be attending the Ohio State University and intend on double majoring in political science and economics. I'm the baby of the family, the youngest of 3, and my incredible older brother is actually here tonight, and my amazing mom and my wonderful friends. I just want to give them all my love. It means so much to me that you're all here. Oh, thank you. I am a firm believer in stories and the people that carry them. I always have been. I like to joke that I'm going to be president one day. Like I said, I'm involved in the YMCA Youth in Government program. For years, I've held positions at the city, state, and national level, and last summer I had the chance to represent Ohio at the Conference on National Affairs with roughly 800 other youth advocates from all over the country. I've proposed legislation for mental health at all levels, and at the national conference, I presented federal-level reform. I truly believe that young people are not naive for believing we can change the world. The point is that I heard statistics and figures left and right all week, but today I couldn't tell you any of them. What I do remember vividly, like it was yesterday, are the people, the pain, the hope, the human connection, the love. It's the stories that stick with us, that are ingrained on our hearts, that change us, that inspire us to change the world. It's the stories. Because of that, I want to tell you my story. I believe that you are the leading lady, the protagonist of your own life. I believe that life comes in chapters, that characters are introduced at specific moments for a particular purpose. I believe in having a soundtrack to your own life, in writing your own destiny, in soulmates, checkpoints, and cliches. If my life were a novel, it would have 3 distinct parts so far. Part 1 of my story begins with a realization. It's the realization that mommy and daddy don't love each other, that they aren't like those couples in the movies or like your friend's parents, that in kindergarten on Parent Appreciation Day, you have to choose which one to make the craft for, that your family's broken. Fighting was background noise, and crying myself to sleep was daily routine. As the youngest, I was the last to be bound by custody negotiations and subsequently alone in a cold house full of resentment and void of love. As human beings, we have this funny way of taking what other people say around us and echoing it within us. After years of soaking up negativity, words like ugly, disappointment, failure, and worthless that had always existed around me began to become within me. This nearly crippled me. As my family was ripped apart, my heart was too. But eventually, court battles, testifying, lawyers, family counselors, switching back and forth, everything was put behind us. Needless to say, the door to part 1 of my life was slammed shut, and I turned, locked the deadbolt, and threw away the key. I was not going back. Checkpoint. But you know the phrase, when one door closes, another door opens. It was around the 6th grade when depression and anxiety invaded my life. If part 1 of my story was the old grainy home movies, part 2 was muted, lifeless. Like a soldier on a mission, all rationality and positivity were gunned down, and only my inner demons were left standing. I had such an intense desire to pretend like nothing was wrong, a byproduct of believing if I was the perfect child, I could somehow counterbalance the rift in my family. But that facade was exhausting and impossible to maintain forever. My bubbliness and love of life slowly faded away until I was nothing but a shell of the sunshine girl my family and friends once knew. In the 8th grade, self-loathing turned into self-mutilation, and the lack of a will to live turned into a plan to die. For 3 years, I struggled with self-harm and suicidal tendencies without anyone knowing. That sentence is taboo in our society, often hushed or shoved under the carpet, but it is the truth, and I have found that there is great power in the truth. I attempted suicide for the first time in April of my 8th grade year and was hospitalized in the Carl Lindner Center of Hope. I would later attempt suicide again in October of my freshman year at Macaulay and be hospitalized in the College Hill facility. Sitting across from my mom in the deafening silence of our living room and rolling up the sleeves to my long-sleeve sweatshirt was one of the hardest decisions I have ever made. But I did it anyway. Checkpoint. For so long, I thought asking for help was a sign of weakness. But struggle is inherent to the human experience, and asking for help a way of survival. People need other people, and I finally admitted that I needed someone. Speaking up was the choice that scared me the most, but it was also the choice that saved my life. Fear crippled me, nearly killed me. Vulnerability is a stab in the dark, an outstretched hand, but there is always light, always someone on the other side. When I was hospitalized, I met some of the strongest people I've ever known. It would be inauthentic for me to stand up here and not pay tribute to them. Even in the pits of hell, as these young people walked through fire, they still reassured each other, encouraged each other, prayed for each other, inspired each other. I found people that made me forget about my arm stinging and the furniture bolted to the floor. But more importantly, I found people that made me remember that there was so much light left, so much life left. Even in the darkest of times, the human soul is remarkably resilient. Recovery was a journey in and of itself. It wasn't just putting a cast on it or taking it easy. It was a daily choice, a choice to wake up, to rewrite my internal monologue, to be intentionally open, intentionally honest, to embrace the uncomfortable moments that inevitably came, to embrace fear. I had to learn how to handle panic attacks, how to communicate, how to stop bottling everything up. I had to learn how to ask for help and be okay with it. I took antidepressants every day and saw a therapist almost every week for about 4 years. There were hard days, awful days, days where I thought I was slipping back. Recovery is the realization that you need to strip down the very way you look at the world and at yourself. You need to pry your hands away from the self-destructive ways in which you process trauma. You need to look at yourself in the mirror and rethink what you're saying. And it's hard, and you can't do it alone. So I got by with a little help from my friends and a lot of help from my family. Let me take a second to tell you about my mom. She is the strongest woman you will ever meet. She taught me to be brave in the storm. She had everything ripped from her. She built a life and a home from ashes, from nothing. The force that tried to extinguish her light fueled it. She talked me off the ledge. She walked through the fire with me. She loved me until I could believe I was worth loving. She is my inspiration and my hero, and I could not stand up here tonight without paying tribute to her. She held my hand through the roller coaster of ups and downs, and there were definitely downs. But 4 years later, I am here with you today. I still have anxiety. Oh, thank you. I still have anxiety. I still have panic attacks every once in a while. I still have scars on the inside and ones you and I can see. But the difference is that now I take ownership of what happened to me, what I endured, what I experienced, but also how I reacted to it. My life is my story, and I know I need to tell it. So in sophomore year, I brought National Suicide Prevention Week to Macaulay High School. Checkpoint. This minuscule gesture to the rest of the world meant everything to me. This was my beauty from ashes, my purpose for the pain. But despite the desperate need for a conversation about mental health, For some reason, people still think talking about mental illness is too taboo, too uncomfortable. But the resistance, the invalidation, the jokes, the stigma, and even the blatant hatred didn't faze me. I felt a calling to be an advocate, a voice. I didn't care how steep of an uphill battle it was going to be. I was ready to fight for it. I think I get that determination from my mom. With a smile on my face but a fire in my heart, I refused to back down. It was then that I realized that 1 week dedicated to the suicide epidemic was not nearly enough. Mental health is a daily struggle. I surely know that. So the support for mental health needed to be just as continuous, just as present. It was with that the Fearless Initiative was born. At the end of my sophomore year, part 3 of my life began, and everything started to fall into place. I got my mojo back. Not because my struggles just went away, but because I was willing to fight for my life, to fight for me and people like me. When I pitched the idea for an advocacy and awareness group surrounding mental health, I brought an incredibly extensive, color-coded PowerPoint to clarify my goal and refute any possible argument against this cause. Basically, I came prepared for a fight. At our very first meeting, we had a roundtable discussion with about 10 girls interested in something like the Fearless Initiative, just an idea. When I got into the car after that meeting, I cried tears of joy as 10 whole people were excited about it. Last year, students were given the opportunity to check out a club. After a little over a year of operation, the Fearless Initiative had to be given the auditorium, which seats 1,000, because so many students, roughly half our student body, were interested in us. In an anonymous survey sent out this month, students were asked unprompted, what does Macaulay High School do well to support your mental health? And the vast majority responded and typed in, the Fearless Initiative. The Fearless Initiative is a movement of young people advocating for themselves and their generation by breaking the silence surrounding the real issues they face. It is a community, a family. Our mission is to empower and embrace each other for everything we are and to fearlessly live out our stories. Through guest speakers, social media movements, service projects, assemblies, and regular meetings, we discuss suicide prevention, substance abuse, body image, relationships, depression, anxiety, and other struggles our students are facing. Just last weekend, we walked in the National Alliance on Mental Illness's Mental Health Walk, and we have been celebrating mental health awareness all throughout the month of May. I started this group with hopes of just inspiring one person, touching one life. I could have never imagined the magnitude of how these girls would inspire me. On September 10th of my junior year, World Suicide Prevention Day, I shared my story in full for the first time, without censorship, but definitely still with a little fear. I somehow thought that if people knew my struggle, they would doubt my strength. If they knew my past, they would hate my present. I have never been more wrong. I realized that by telling your story, you empower the people around you to do the same thing. And then I realized that by empowering the people around you to tell their stories, you get this chain reaction, and before you know it, you've changed your little corner of the world. There will be people who try to silence you. There will be people uncomfortable in their own skins and in their own stories that balk and shudder at your authenticity. There will be people who challenge you, who threaten to drown you out. It may scare you. It scared me. The fear is worth it. Yes, your past is a part of you, but it is not all of you. What defines you is what you do with the time you're given. Be grateful, because to be this vulnerable means you are alive. It's crazy to believe that part 3 of my life, the part I've been in for so long, is coming to a close. But I feel less like this is a door closing and more like a window. I can still look back, say hi, but move forward knowing that so much lies ahead. There was a time in my life when I was convinced I wouldn't make it to 18. I was certain I would be long gone before I ever graduated high school. Well, here I am, 18 years old, ready to receive my diploma in 3 days. Checkpoint. But my story isn't over yet. Nobody's is. We are all stories still going, not stories engraved in stone with definite endings or unwavering destinies. The ink is still damp and the pens are in our hands. To anyone here who might be struggling, who is at rock bottom, who has lost hope, hold on. The phrase, "it gets better," is cliche and overused and unhelpful, but I believe it. I believe that it's always darkest before the dawn, that what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, that pain ends, that life is worth it, that it gets better, every cliche in the book. I believe it because I've lived it. Let yourself lean on people. If you are struggling, don't struggle in silence. There is still light within you. Your story is important and still going. There is a purpose for this pain. There is a reason why each of us are here. Stay for a little while longer, and I promise you will find it. Through every bad day, every struggle, every heartbreak, breakdown, breakup, breakthrough, through everything, we have all made it here. You've survived everything life has thrown at you, every curveball. So find your passion. Find what sets your soul on fire and let it consume you. Statistics and stigma are big and daunting, and it's impossible to combat alone. So tell your story, join it with others, and let that be the weapon with which you defeat hate and ignorance. So love and love boldly. Be brave with your heart and courageous with your story. Most of all, always be fearless. Thank you so much.